for BBC Asian Network.
Mobeen Azhar.
It is, and tonight we are talking about K-dramas, the whole phenomenon of people watching Korean dramas, particularly in the Desi context. Why are Desi audiences turning to them? I've got Hafsa on the line, I've got Sunny with me, and now I'm joined by Adam Riley, who is K-drama and K-pop expert. Adam, welcome to the Asian Network. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm great. It's great to be here.
Good. Tell me how you got into the whole K-drama scene. What was it that appealed to you?
Well, I actually do a K-pop radio show, and I got into it because my wife is from South Korea. So back in maybe about 2009, she was over in Korea visiting family, and we were having one of our phone catch-ups, and I could hear some music playing in the background, and I was like, what is this catchy tune that I can hear? So she went off and she asked, because she didn't know, it was actually her nieces that were playing the music, and it was Wonder Girls' Nobody, one of the most popular K-pop songs that was out there at the time.
Wonder
And
Girl.
it really got... Yeah, Wonder Girls and their song Nobody. It was quite a big hit in America as well. And that's it. It got me hooked.
And you were hooked. Adam, something tells me you are not from Korea. Where are you from? Your accent, is it a bit Manchester? Is it Lancashire?
It is Manchester.
I thought it might be Manchester. So you made that leap from Manchester all the way to South Korean pop, and it was through your spouse. Then how did you get into the dramas? What was it about the dramas?
Well, my show does focus mainly on the music.
Right.
But what you tend to find is there's a big crossover between a lot of K-pop artists that go into the dramas as well. So you have artists like Hyeri from Girls' Day, who's gone into different dramas, and Park Shin-hye. So this is why some of the dramas are so... There's a big crossover between those that love the music and those that love the drama, because, to be honest, some of the actors and actresses sing as well.
Oh, okay. So is it seen a bit like, I think in Bollywood and in the Desi industry, and Sunny, you'll know more about this than I do. There is this crossover where if you are in entertainment, you are seen as like a 360-degree star. So a lot of people who put out pop videos in Pakistan and India are also in dramas, or also in films. It sounds like it's very similar in South Korea. Is that right, Adam?
Yes, it is. That's correct. Yeah. So you mentioned Pinocchio earlier in the show, and that's there's a singer called Park Shin-hye that's in that one. Yeah. And Reply 1988, which is, Stranger Things, which is on Netflix. Everyone reminisces about the 80s. Well, this particular show as well has a singer from Girls' Day, which is a really catchy pop band.
I've heard of Girls' Day. They're actually big in America as well now, aren't they?
Yeah, the Girls' Day, Girls' Generation, these bands are growing. They're feeding off BTS. So BTS are the big ones that are leading the way.
Big. We'll come back to that in a second, Adam. We spoke to Sana a bit earlier, who actually made the trip over to Seoul. This is what Sana had to say.
This
is BBC
Asian Network.
Mobeen Azhar.
So my 3 months in Korea were amazing. I studied in Seoul in Yonsei University. Felt that the people were really nice, amazing, and I actually wanted to see all the things that I've seen in dramas, and they were real. The buildings, fast delivery service, their fast internet. However, whatever they show in dramas are not real. The system of hierarchy is very much present here, and you can see this in every sort of relationship, like even between friends, family, co-workers. Also in dramas, they portray couples in a really lovey-dovey manner. They depict men as really beautiful, even women as super beautiful. They are, but the truth is, it's plastic surgery. Here, the plastic surgery culture is quite massive. Like, parents pay for their children, they give them vouchers to get a surgery, like double eyelid surgery, nose surgery, V-shaped face surgery, like you name it. Like, it's really superficial. Dramas are in fact not real. Like, after staying for 3.5 years in Korea, dramas are not real after all. The people actually, after such a long time, I realized that people are not as nice as I've seen in dramas, but I have met a lot of nice people. There are like a number of girls who have been really disappointed actually, because they came with a different mindset, and when they started living here they realized that that was in fact not the case. So I was one of them too. I was really depressed and really sad, and it's also my fault because whatever you see on TV is not always true, right? Asian culture is somewhat similar in every country. Like, for example, in the Western society, people are more straightforward, they're more open, they're more blunt. But here in Korea, I've seen that people they beat around the bushes, and that's what I also felt in Pakistan. They won't like something, but they won't say that on your face.
We heard from Sana there. I mean, my heart goes out to Sana because it sounds like she had quite an innocent approach to dramas, and then when she went out there, she thought, yeah, this doesn't fit with my reality. Adam, you know that kind of in a lot of the pop music, I've seen there's an aesthetic and there's a feel of kind of everything is saccharine sweet. Do you think that's a fair assessment?
Yes, that's very true. It's far, far away from the likes of EastEnders and Coronation Street, that's for sure.
It is, exactly. And that brings me to my question. That do you think part of the appeal is maybe we live in a time where, we live in a time where we are living in a Trumpian world. We are living in a world of Brexit. We are living in a world of economic uncertainty. Do you think the appeal of some of this stuff is it's just kind of sweet and nice and easy to swallow, and you can sit there eating a bit of popcorn and just tuning into a world that is all smiley and ditzy and cute?
Definitely. I certainly would agree with that. If you look at some of the Korean dramas, as was mentioned earlier, eye candy is one of the key things. So you do switch on a show and you'll be like, they catch my eye. And then perhaps you'll get into the story and you'll like that. Then you'll see some of the food that they're eating and you think, okay, well, I've seen a Korean food stall nearby, so I might go and try some of that. So you start living in this little, precious bubble, and you can learn some of the language as well, and you can have fun with some of your Asian friends and stuff like that, chatting about Korean words that you picked up, look at the fashion and things like that. And of course the music as well, because a lot of the soundtracks feature, like mentioned before, popular music artists.
Mm-hmm. So have you really bought into this? Because it sounds like if your partner is from that part of the world as well, do you consume the rest of the culture? Do you consume the food, for example?
Well, yes. Thankfully, my wife is a very good cook, and she looks after me very well by cooking things like Korean galbi and gimbap, which is what people would see as like sushi, but sometimes done with meat. Very delicious food. I'm well looked after.
Very nice. Hafsa, when you heard Sana speaking about, she said she got kind of disheartened with the whole thing at one point because when she was over there, people weren't what she expected. She also referenced things like plastic surgery, and it's fairly well documented that South Korea is one of the plastic surgery capitals of the world. It's very normal for people to get things like nose jobs. Does any of that put you off? Does it make you think it's kind of not authentic? Or does it really not matter to you because you're not looking that deeply into it?
I think it's kind of obvious that it's not authentic if you just look at K-pop and how kind of supposedly perfect it is and how all these boy bands are put together, and it's almost kind of like they're machines. So to me, I don't really mind that it's not like that because I'll enjoy it for what it is. Even if behind the scenes, okay, there's a lot of corruption and maybe they're forced to do certain things in these bands and they're not... The realities of it aren't as kind of pleasant to look at, but I think if you just look at them, it's kind of obvious that they've all had tons of surgery. Just a simple before and after will kind of reveal that to me. So I'm going to be honest, there's surgery everywhere. I don't really mind.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your honesty, and that's why I'm saying my heart kind of went out to Sana because I really like that she was honest, but at the same time I thought essentially she was saying reality didn't match up to what she'd seen on TV, and I thought, well, where does it? Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
That never really happens. Sunny, do you think there are parallels here, with what we see in Bollywood? Because all the same stuff that we're hearing, that we heard from Sana, it could absolutely be applied to Bollywood. Because obviously, Bollywood promotes beauty ideals and standards and a culture which isn't real. But that's the point of it. It's entertainment, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just listening back to... everybody here, there are definitely some clear parallels. I was sitting here thinking, what, Bollywood is doing exactly the same, selling this false image, but it's always been escapist cinema, hasn't it? Just from across the board, not just about looks, but lifestyle, environment, that kind of thing. So definitely there's some really distinct parallels there, especially as far as appearance goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Adam, in terms of a lot of the dramas, are there lessons that you think can be taken and should be taken and applied to our lives here? Earlier we were hearing about this time of this idea of innocence and courtship and all that kind of stuff. Are there things that we can extract from K-dramas and actually apply to our lives?
Well, I think you say that innocence aspect is extremely important, especially in today's world. Nowadays, things can get quite seedy, unfortunately, and there's a lot of things that come out of the woodwork, and you've seen it happen with some of the stars in the K-pop industry recently. So rolling back the years to a bit more of an innocent time would definitely be quite wise.
Adam, sorry, without referencing any names, do you mean has there been some scandals in the K-pop industry?
Yeah, so there's been several artists. One is Sungri from the band.
I said without naming any names, but he went for the names anyway. Go on. But just give me a general, like, what are we talking about, kind of sex scandals? What kind of stuff are we talking about?
Yes.
Oh, no. So was that really disappointing? Was it like the kind of innocent bunny with lovely face and floppy ears and suddenly got a knife out and stabbed you? Was it like that?
Well, exactly, yeah, because if you think about, we were talking about before about the responsibility that these actors, actresses and singers have, and it's across the board, across the world. They have a teen audience. They have a very malleable mind that they're growing up worshipping these idols. You watch the dramas and they're screaming out, "Oppa, I love you, Oppa." And
Oppa, you just told me Oppa,
yeah.
Is that right?
Oppa is like
Oppa.
older brother.
Oh, Oppa, very nice. It's like Oppa. In Punjabi, we would say Oppa, which is like an older woman in respect, but it's similar. Okay, Oppa.
So they have these teenage fans that are worshipping them, and then if they go off and do something that's disreputable, then clearly it is influencing people in a bad way. You're either going to hurt the fans or you're going to make them think that it's acceptable to do bad things. So it's good to kind of roll back and go to some of these dramas where it's more innocent, the sweet little look, and the heart's beating fast when they meet somebody that they adore.
It's cute, that's what it is. Adam and Hafsa and Sunny, I want to wrap this up in a little bit, and I want to talk about the future and how Bollywood will be affected and change, and how Desi dramas will change, and if Korean dramas are really here to stay. We will continue this after some Amrit Maan. This is Mobeen Azhar on the BBC Asian Network. We are talking about Korean dramas. I've got Sunny with me, I've got Adam, I've got Hafsa, and on line 3 now, I'm joined by Kim Jong-un. Are you there, Kim? No, I'm kidding. He's not actually called into the show. But wouldn't that be what... Adam, your heart stopped then for a second, didn't it? I can hear the excitement in your voice. Wouldn't that be something? Wouldn't that be something? So I want to hear now, not from Kim. No, I'm not going to hear from Kim, but I want to hear from Bablu. Let's speak to Bablu. We spoke to him a little bit earlier. This is what Bablu had to say.
This
is BBC
Asian Network.
Mobeen Azhar.
I got into K-films because I was into my cinema and I really liked to watch a variety of films. I was getting kind of bored of Hollywood. It was getting kind of predictable for me. And I just wanted to try something new. I've always been into world cinema. I used to watch Hong Kong films. As I got older, my taste became more sophisticated and perhaps I became a bit more pretentious. I decided to branch out a little bit and started to watch Japanese films, Persian films, and also Korean films. And I really enjoyed watching Korean films. They made the style of films that really appealed to me in terms of the heroism, the emotional aspect to it, the sort of stuff that makes you angry but also appreciate the dedication and sacrifices one sometimes needs to make for the greater good. I don't really see too many similarities between Bollywood and K-films. I didn't really watch Bollywood much growing up. To be honest, I kind of despised it. A bit irrational, to be honest, but I really found it embarrassing because, it's Asian, I was Asian, and I found a bit lacking in the intellectual department, in the variety department, so don't know too much about it, but I do remember it being all in one type of film. I would say the differences between Bollywood and K-films are, say on the whole, K-films, they're not afraid to show a bit of bum and a bit of breath like their American counterparts. They're a lot more visceral, so in terms of violence, in terms of sexual nudity, especially in terms of the violence, I would say they're more visceral than Hollywood. I wouldn't compare them. In fact, I would say K-films are more similar to American films. The only appreciation I've seen for Bollywood films in Korea is you want to go to Indian restaurants. Other than that, no, they like their own K-pop, they like the K-drama, the K-films, so that's what dominates the TVs over here.
That was Bablu there, talking about Korean films. Hafsa, have you watched any of those? Because Bablu basically said they're a bit racier and ruder and more kind of violent than Bollywood and Desi stuff. Your experience is different in terms of the dramas. Have you watched any of those films?
Actually, I haven't branched into Korean films, but I can assume that maybe the films pander more to an adult audience, whereas maybe the dramas pander to a kind of younger, youthful audience, along with a kind of family audience because you know what you're expecting. With the drama.
I see that. And Adam, does your experience ring true with what Bob Lou was saying? Do you think the films are a bit more out there?
What I tend to find with some of the Korean movies is that they will get a very strong message across wrapped up in potentially a comedy. So, for instance, there's a really popular movie called I Can Speak, which is indeed, it's a comic movie between a mother and a son. But as it develops, the second half of the movie starts going into the territory of the comfort women from the wartime. Mm-hmm. So it actually moves into an extremely serious topic, and it becomes extremely emotional and even brought me to tears. So it goes from this comic style that draws you in at first and then hits you with a powerful message.
It sounds like a parable. I mean, are they seen that way in society? The people kind of flock to them because they teach lessons to society. Is it that kind of thing?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, if you look at, for instance, that movie that I mentioned, and there's another one called Taxi Driver, which again, it sets off with this comic scene, and then it's all about the Gwangju uprising in the 1980s. It's educating people in a historical way, but in a way that's enjoyable as well for the mainstream to consume.
Yeah, I understand. Sonny, do you think, in terms of the way that you do, and then they see output more generally, do you think things are going to have to shift? Because we do live in a more global world where people now have access not only to Korean dramas and Korean films, but we have access to output from every nation and every culture. Are Desi dramas going to have to change up?
I think they already are changing. You know, there already is a shift. It only takes, I think, like I said, platforms like Netflix, they're investing, I think, the most amount of money in India after the US. Mm-hmm. So we're seeing the likes of Sacred Games and Delhi Crimes. So there's already a shift happening. And it only takes someone, you know, sitting in the US to flick through Netflix and click on something Indian, an Indian film or an Indian drama. Mm-hmm. So the content creators in India are aware of that. They've already, I mean, they were catering for a global audience before, but it's more Indian diaspora. Mm-hmm. I think now they're thinking a bit further beyond that. Definitely.
It's entirely global.
Yeah,
I understand. We're going to wrap this up, but I'd like all of you to just tell me if someone is a K-drama virgin and they haven't seen this stuff, what would you like them to take from it? Hafsa, first of all.
Oh, that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, what would you like? What would you like someone to try?
Oh, as in which show to try?
Yeah, and why? You know, what can they take from it?
I actually don't know. There's just so many.
Go on. Well, listen, if my mom was listening, she would love the fact that you said, you can watch this stuff with the whole family and it's all innocent and lovely. So if someone wants to watch some stuff with their family, what should they watch?
Okay, I'm just going to go off. I'm not thinking about your mum, but I'm thinking of the last one that I watched was called Descendants of the Sun.
Descendants of the Sun.
I think someone who isn't kind of used to K-drama may like it because it's not necessarily as cheesy as the other ones. The other ones that I had watched were kind of really old school, like a good 10 years ago. Like there was this one called Boys Over Flowers, which I really enjoyed, but it
Boys
really
in
cheesy.
the Flowers.
Boys Over Flowers.
Boys Over Flowers. I like that title.
It was very cheesy, but very addictive.
Boys Over Flowers. And the first one was Descendants of the Sun, yeah?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Hafsa. Adam, what is the thin end of the wedge? If you want to get hooked, what's the way to get hooked? Give me a title and tell me why.
I have to say, Reply 1988 is the one that people need to watch. If you want a bit of an insight into 80s Korea, it's really addictive. And my wife especially loves it because she can reminisce whilst watching it. From my point of view, it gives me, like I say, some insight into culture that I wasn't aware of during that time in South Korea. If I could chip in with a movie to recommend as well, on the flip side, rather than something sweet, I'll have to say Train to Busan. If anyone likes The Walking Dead, yeah, Train to Busan is the one to watch. It is the zombie movie.
Oh, really? Okay,
Yes.
Do you know what? I'm actually going to make a note of that, and I will try to watch it this weekend because I love zombie stuff.
Stuff.
Train to Busan. Thank you so much, Adam. Really appreciate that.